Welcome to the first ever GMBN Racing News Show, and we kick it off with a load of mountain bike action from all over the world. We've got possibly the most dramatic ever Cape Epic, Crankworx Rotorua, including downhill slopestyle and dual slalom, and the first ever Enduro World Cup in Tasmania.
Wow, yes, don't forget people to keep up to date with all things racing. Subscribe to our brand new channel here, GMBN Racing. Just click the button down below and you'll get all the latest and greatest in the world of racing.
Rich, let's start off with what we've learned from the world of mountain bike racing this week.
Yes, well, do you know what? Nino shirt, he does seem to attract the wildlife in South Africa, having a couple of close run-ins, mate.
Yeah, and I think you need to tie up your riding shoes, otherwise you might have to finish your race barefooted like this guy, Daniel Self.
Oof, yes, and Neil here seems to think that Jesse Melamed runs his tyres a little too soft.
Right, we'll get into that. Let's start with the Enduro World Cup. And there's a couple of format changes this year, so no longer two-day races. We have 1 day of practice, 1 day of racing, so no Queen stage either. But there's points awarded for each stage, so top 10 get points towards the overall.
Yeah, and interestingly, actually, now riders are reseeded in both men's and women's category for the final stage of the day, which I think is going to throw a little bit of tension at the top of the hill.
I think so. If you're, last rider down, you've got to try and win the race.
Yeah, I've got some interesting Medina stats for you as well, Neil. So it was a 54-kilometre race. 6 stages with 2,500 metres of descending and 1,200 metres of climbing.
It looked really good fun. I watched some of those POVs. One of Jesse Melamed's where he's absolutely blowing back doors. Stage 4 was actually a downhill track, so there was talk of some local knowledge for people like Troy Brosnan or Luke Meyer-Smith or even Conor Fearon having a bit of an advantage there.
Yeah, I think it could really play to them. Also, the final stage was a monster. 5k long, 820 metres of descent from the top. 10 minutes roughly for the fastest. I mean, that's a big one.
It is big. So it started off, actually, Dan Bucko, who was a privateer until recent years. Sam Hill actually spoke to Newtproof. Got him a ride on Newtproof SRAM. He's a local and a Medina trail builder. He actually won stage 1.
Yeah, he was absolutely hauling. But what about, obviously, reigning Enduro World Champ Jesse Melamed? Sadly, dropped to 19th overall in the end there. But, he was on a flyer up until a wild moment, should we say?
Well, yeah, we're going to get into that. He did start with 4th and then a 2nd, and then got ahead of himself. And then one thing I noticed in his bike check on the UCI World Series YouTube, he actually said he's running 20 PSI in the front, 21 PSI rear. I think that's too soft. I honestly
go.
I mean, he said he burped his tyre, and I think, that kind of pressure could well have cost him this race.
Yeah, he's a wild rider. He's a slight guy, but I mean, 20 is low. I mean, I'm assuming there's an inset in there, but yeah, it could have come down to that, sadly. Kind
of an unusual setup. He rides a small size Canyon Spectral that he specs up to 160mm travel, so 150mm travel bike. So he puts a longer stroke shock on there. Did you see he had his RockShox reverb the other way around? The Axis battery sits the other way because it must buzz the rear tyre.
Yeah, okay, I missed that. Interesting.
I just think that's too low pressure. It's all good until it isn't, and if you burp tyre, it could cost you the race.
Yeah, no, maybe that's what happened. We'll find out. Okay, Neil, a bit of a standout ride for me was Alex Storr of the Forbidden Synthesis team. Now, he got his highest ever EDR result in 13th place.
Yeah.
I mean, a stonking ride despite this absolutely wild moment.
That's what you call an understeer for such a thing on a mountain bike. Yeah. I mean, he lost a bit of time there, but I mean, I'm sure there's wild moments like that going on.
Yeah.
But he did help Forbidden Synthesis team to take the team overall lead, actually, with Conor Fearon, of course.
Yeah, I mean,
in that. Shout out to Ryan Gilchrist, 6th place for the Yeti Fox Factory Racing. A name that I've never heard before, but brilliant ride.
No, definitely another up-and-comer. Sort of some young guns starting to come through now, sort of disturbing things. What about Troy Brosnan, Neil? Not necessarily a young gun, but, he's not old yet, but takes a 5th overall and a win on stage 4.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with that. But it was an all-Aussie podium with that young rider, Luke Meyer-Smith, that's his first race in elite as well, coming up from junior. Taking the win, Dan Bucko 2nd and Conor Fearon 3rd. 2 sets of flat pedals, 2nd and 3rd place. That's interesting. Luke Meyer-Smith of the Giant Factory Off-Road team. That's his debut race. So he was a junior last year.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Aussie national downhill champ. His brother Remy Meyer-Smith actually getting 2nd in the under-21s. So,
Watch out for them brothers.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what about the big guns? What about the big names, Neil, like the big 4?
Some slightly disappointing results there, I guess. Yeah. Richie Rude was 4th until the final stage, where a crash knocked him down to 7th.
Yeah, Mason 14th. I'm sure he'll be happy. It's a solid start, but it's probably not quite as high as he was hoping.
I don't know if he's that solid. 18, yeah. Jack Moyer, 18th. Melamed, 19th.
Yeah.
Adrian Day, 22nd, although he had quite a slow start and sort of worked his way up through the stages.
Yeah, so he was like 66th, I think, on the first stage, and then was smashing top 10s come the end of the day. So I think the speed is there.
Yeah.
You know, maybe just easing into the season a little bit more.
What about the women's race? Well, as we predicted, the top 5 was a French-British affair with all the big guns fighting it out, with Rotorua coming out swinging, battling with Valley Hall, the young downhill star. She took 3 stage wins.
Yes, definitely. That was all looking like a good old ding-dong battle there until Valley Hall sort of started to fade, should we say. Had a bit of a few mistakes and stuff towards the end. And
she had a big crash, and a smashed up knuckle.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you could say EBeautiful Rotorua came out swinging. I actually think she looks like a really smooth, safe pair of hands, and it's won her championships in the past. I know it's only round 1, but she kind of looks like she can't get it wrong. But she's very early to start.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, Valley's unfortunate mistakes bumped Morgan Shah up to 2nd place, and actually the only sort of person who could really get sort of within striking distance of EBeautiful, really, because it was actually then quite a big gap back to Ella Connolly.
She was consistent, yeah. She sort of got a solid 3rd for the day, but she was 37 seconds off the pace. Melanie Pujan found her pace as the day went on, but she finished 8th overall. I think probably a bit disappointing as well.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, not quite where she'd want to be, but I mean, still to be in the top 10 these days is actually a very good result, and I think it's a solid position to build on for the overall.
Yeah, Kate Weatherly also back racing, first time at an EDR, finishing 7th place.
Yeah, nice.
So this week has seen the 19th edition of the Absa Cape Epic. 732 team riders tackle 648 kilometres and 15,000 metres of climbing. Rich, I've put your name down for it.
Excellent, thanks Neil, because I've actually put you down as my teammate.
Okay, cool.
Yes, the race does take in some amazing, stunning vineyards, mountain ranges and coastlines of South Africa.
And they actually dealt with some wild weather this year as well. There's a lot of rain, some floods on the Queen stage. It was crazy. Kim Lecourt and Vera Losser of the Efficient Infinity Insure stole the win away from E-Fortinet Seattle Coffee Co's Amy Wakefield and Candice Lill. Lecourt and Losser trailed behind the leaders by around 10 minutes up until stage 6 after Wakefield suffered a catastrophic mechanical and actually had to ride 8 kilometres to the tech zone just on a rim. She got a puncture, tried to fix that, tried to put a tube in, didn't work.
I saw gutted. Not only the bit of bad luck for Wakefield in this year's race, a collision with a tree back on stage 1. I don't know if you saw this. Basically resulted in a nasty injury to Wakefield's arm, where she sort of impaled her arm essentially on a cut branch.
She basically gaffer taped it back together, and then the next few days they rode so strong. It was amazing to see, actually.
Sadly, the mechanical on stage 6 cost Wakefield and Lill 30 minutes, seeing them slip back into 2nd place in the overall rankings.
Yes, deficit. They wouldn't be able to claw back in the final days. Lecourt and Losser took the top step with a total time of 33 hours, 11 minutes, 37 seconds.
Oh my God. Yeah, Wakefield and Lill would finish 32 minutes, 24 seconds behind the leaders, with Team 91 Songo Specialised Sophia Gomez, Villafane and Katarina Nash rounding off the podium 43 minutes, 17 seconds off the pace.
The men's race had just as much crashing and drama. Nino Schurter and Andrew Frischnecht of Scott SRAM MT Racing fought off encounters with local wildlife. Actually, one took Nino out on the last day. He crashed. So I don't know what it was, kind of a big rabbit thing. Anyway, they basically held the yellow jersey pretty much the whole week, but they were always losing time to the 2022 winners, the Orbea Lear Speed Company, pairing of Gio Egger and Lucas Baum, and Toyota Specialized 91 riders Matthew Beers and Christopher Blevins. They rode really strong after losing time with a Blevins stomach bug.
Egger and Baum took the win on stage 5, the Queen stage, in crazy wet conditions, with the course sometimes being completely flooded. I don't know if you saw the pictures, it looked insane. That was despite an over the bars into a puddle for poor old Baum as well.
He absolutely got drowned out there,
yes, yeah.
A 3rd place for Schurter and Frischnecht on this stage saw them slip back into 2nd in the GC.
Yeah, gutted. Egger and Baum's time at the top was short-lived, however, as they lost about 10 minutes with a rear mech problem the next day and gave up the general classification.
Yeah, I saw that shit to ride backwards to the tech zone to replace that rear mech. You know, heartbreaking for those guys. Whereas Toyota Specialized 91 riders Matthew Beers and Christopher Blevins continued their ride towards the front of the GC with their 5th stage win of the event.
Yeah, Schurter and Frischnecht held a 1 minute 32 lead over Blevins and Beers as they went into the challenging final stage. 80k, 2 big climbs totaling 2,400 metres of ascent. Baum and Egger trailed the leaders by a further 4 minutes.
It was a dramatic finish to the 2023 edition of the Cape Epic, as a crash in the leading pack meant Baumann Egger secured the stage win, with Beers and Blevin taking second place 10 seconds behind, but crucially 5 minutes 44 ahead of the overall leaders Schurter and Frischnecht. A time difference big enough to snatch the win with a total time of 26 hours, 70 minutes and 4 seconds. Egger and Baum took second place in overall, trailing by 3 minutes 49, with Schurter and Frischnecht taking third. So the race really slipped away from Nino Schurter and Andrew Frischnecht. Kind of heartbreaking for those guys.
I know, gutted. The sort of Toyota Specialized 91 team just proving that little bit too strong, and consistency obviously playing a massive key to such a big race as well.
Yeah, well, actually really nice though, bit of news from the race. They've given away their prize money to Songo, the non-profit, to help kids get on bikes. So something's good to come from that as well. And also the E-Fortinet Seattle Coffee Co. with that massive mechanical, basically losing the race. But
yeah, again, you know, heartbreaking for those guys, but just pipped by the efficient Infinity Insure by 32 minutes.
That's racing. Anyway, on to Crankworx in Rotorua. It's the first Crankworx event of the year, and New Zealand, where a lot of the Gravity pros have sort of been spending their off-season hanging out and training. On to the downhill racing, where Loic Bruni of Specialized Gravity came out swinging, took the win by just 0.3 of a second actually over Oliver Zoir of Canyon Collective FMD Racing, with Nico Mullally riding his own bike for Frameworks Racing in third place.
Yeah, in the women's race, it was Jess Blewett of GT Factory Racing taking the win by 7 seconds over Jenna Hastings of Pivot Factory Racing. Rounding out the top three was Shania Rawson, a privateer racer, so mixing it up with the big guns there.
Yeah, good on it. In the slopestyle, Emil Johansson carried on his winning ways with a score of 93.75, with tricks like a 450 downside double tail whip, an opposite 360 bar spin to double downside whip. The guy is mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle just pronouncing the things, let alone, you know, being able to do them. In second place was David Godziak from Poland with a 91.5, including triple tail whips, huge cash rot on the wooden step down, and who rounded out the top three, mate?
Tom Eisted. Yeah, his best ever result at Crankworx, third place. Doesn't even have a bike sponsor, that guy.
Yeah, fair play. I'm sure he will soon.
In the dual slalom, Tani Seagrave made a return to racing after 12 months off with head injury, so great to see her back. I can't wait to see Tani at a few more events this year, hopefully. She did finish 9th, wasn't the best race for her.
Hey, a race is a race, and when you come back after such a long time, I think it's tough, isn't it? But on to the winner. Harriet Burbridge-Smith beating Martha Gill in the final to take the big W. Yeah,
Jackson Frew won the men's race and he beat Tahuto Ariki Penny.
Neil, I hear actually you've got some real interesting information about where all the fans can catch up on everything racing this year.
Today is the day where the full breadth of our mountain bike coverage across the GMBN channels is officially announced, and the exciting news is that we'll be bringing you the action from the UCI Mountain Bike World Series, the new home of the UCI Mountain Bike World Cup. This includes cross-country Olympic, cross-country short track and cross-country marathon, downhill, enduro and e-enduro. We'll be trackside to bring you the insight into all of the action from the racing, as well as track walks, bike checks, interviews, pit walks, highlights and more throughout the season. We'll also be showing elite semi-finals from downhill, as well as the junior races and under-23s cross-country, alongside short highlights of all the disciplines, all brought to you by our good selves right here on GMBN Racing. And if you want the full premium package, including worldwide access to absolutely all events we've already mentioned, plus the full-length live UCI World Series Elite Finals, which is an absolute must-see, then head over to GCN Plus, link below to find out more and subscribe. GCN Plus is our live and on-demand racing and documentary subscription service, which lets you take the action with you, pause, rewind and pick up where you left off on mobile, web and connected devices, including Apple TV, Samsung and Fire TV. And even when the racing's over, you've also got access to over 160 exclusive cycling documentaries covering adventure, challenge, tech and legends of the sport. If you're interested, check out the one about the Athertons for starters. It's available to watch right now. All right, thanks for joining us on the very first ever GMBN Racing News Show, and we're going to be back next week.
Yes, we are. So this weekend does see the upcoming round 2 of the EDR series in Derby, Tasmania. It's going to be some hot contests going on there.
And we'll see you back throughout the season, where of course we've got World Cup racing, cross-country, downhill and marathon all coming very soon.